We are excited to host our 12th annual Smart Energy Summit and want to thank Osiaco for their sponsorship support of this year's 12th annual event. I've got Lawrence Schmidt joining us today to share more about his role in the company's initiatives. So thank you so much, Laurent, for being here. And again, we're really appreciate your support of this year's event. So if we can just start for a moment and see if you can give a brief introduction of your role and the role that Osiaco is playing in the energy market today.
Yes, so thank you for having us today. Osiaco is a company which has been working onto the integration of distributed energy resources into the residential and prosumer markets. And I myself in charge in Osiaco of the activities related to utilities as well as our European developments. What we have been seeing in the past few months is a very rapid transformation of energy system to prepare for further climate change mitigation, being able to reduce the carbon footprint of energy system, and that has driven to the massive introduction of renewable at all scale of the energy system, whether it's wind, photovoltaics, but as well as new technologies for decarbonizing the transportation, electrical vehicles. And while we introduce renewable into the energy system, more interest for flexibility to balance and manage the energy system, which really question how to best integrate and optimize the flexibility of distributed energy resources into the prosumer back into to the utility and wholesale market. So we are really on the journey on optimizing the integration of distributed energy resources, looking primarily at residential markets, and into the journey of the prosumer wanting to play his role in the energy transition and become low carbon users in the future.
Well, that's great. And there's certainly a major transformation going on right now as the residential and commercial markets are looking to really reduce their overall carbon footprint. Recently, we've had a major energy crisis here in Texas. It's a beautiful day today, but just recently we had many across the state with power outages as a result of the supply really not being able to meet the demand. And I wonder if you might be able to comment a little bit on your perspective of that situation in Texas.
I think the Texas situation has been an eye-opener to the worldwide energy environments, in the fact that energy systems are becoming severely exposed to weather catastrophes, and basically to the complexity of maintaining the energy system life without blackout during these periods. And let's be honest, I think everyone, every prosumer start to realize that it's becoming almost impossible to rely in the future on an electrical system which is going to be available all the time. I think what these catastrophes, and we really sincerely hope everything is going to be recovered soon, is going to question the energy system is overall managed, and how is the resiliency of this energy system maintained, and the role of the prosumer into this resiliency aspect. So of course, one of the key elements is what should be the role of photovoltaics and vehicle parked in a home during these extreme periods. Why don't we enable a vehicle to home into these critical periods, while we know the power electronics storage are available, and we are launching a product, Decibel, which is enabling a vehicle to home, vehicle to grid functionality. And I think we think these extreme weather events are basically accelerators of these new integration which we see happening into the smart home environment.
Well, we certainly are seeing with our research that consumers have a willingness and really a desire to get their electricity from providers who not only have traditional sources of energy, but also the renewable energy sources. So our latest data shows that 43% of consumers prefer energy providers that offer both. So I think this is going to continue, as everybody has more awareness. And the situation in Texas, I didn't think about my electricity 2 weeks ago at all, and now it is very much top of mind. I asked my husband to buy a generator. So people will respond to the crisis in different ways. But let's get back on some of the other market drivers and trends that you're seeing. So could you share maybe 3 of the top things that you think are happening in the market that will help push things forward?
So the first trend which we really see happening is this need for decarbonizing the energy system on its normal operation periods, and the very rapid introduction of renewable and electrical vehicle at the edge of the system, as well as heat pumps. And here the amount of flexibility in the same time needs to be increased into the system. And here there is a new dilemma on how to integrate distributed energy resources into the home. While these were demand response, PV, and storage were historically siloed in terms of approach, I think they need to be further integrated into the home and thought from a single interface point of view back into the grid. The second element which we see happening is the large amount of IoT available, or I would say smart devices, which is maybe more the term in the US, available in the home environment. A lot of potential smart usage data, but what we see is a missing orchestration and interface layers across this environment, particularly when it comes to energy management services. So that's the second element. And the last one is what I was just referring before, is this a notion of bottom-up resiliency. And here we are not anymore in an environment where we want to optimize or minimize carbon footprint, but we're in an environment where we need to save life, and where we need to find, I would say, every possible resources available during these extreme scenarios, whether they are local diesel generators, vehicle to grid, or dedicated storage. And I think here that will require a different way of integrating all these devices through power electronics. And this power electronics will need to be, in a way, grid forming. So being able to form the frequency when the grid will not be able and will not be available anymore. And in order to be able to safeguard, I would say, emergency critical loads into these prosumers' house. So these are really 3 trends happening in parallel, and that's going to revolutionize, I think, what prosumer need at the interface of the smart home.
Well, certainly consumers are able to be an active participant here, and collectively really have a large impact. Can you share a little bit more about Decibel and that specific technology? It's maybe a little bit complicated, so maybe break it down for us to easily understand what's unique about the technology.
So the first element of the technology is to be an inverter technology. So that's converting AC to DC and DC to AC. And it's capable of connecting various DC direct current device together without going through the AC. So that makes this conversion much more efficient. So if you convert PV into battery, for instance, you only go through a single conversion rather than going through various stages. So it's much more efficient at the power conversion level, as an example. But it also allows to make use of the battery of an electrical vehicle exactly the same way as a standalone battery, as an example. On the top of this voltage source inverter, so voltage source is the technology being used. We also use an IoT environment and a platform which is capable of orchestrating devices around the inverter. So we think the inverter will real-time interact with the rest of the devices into the home, but as well as interaction with the cloud and with the utilities, and being able to use and connect with real-time price, with the DER forecasts and so on, to be able to enhance the customer journey when it comes to optimizing his energy in his I would say, PV, EV, and house environment?
Well, it's certainly a market and in transition, and I think technologies like yours are going to play a key role in the future. And so we want to thank you again for your time today and for your support of Parks Associates' 12th Annual Smart Energy Summit. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the event.
Hello, we're excited to welcome you to Smart Energy Summit. For decades, Parks Associates has studied the impact of technology on the consumer and utility markets. Smart Energy Summit Engaging the Consumer addresses the evolution of these markets, the impact of COVID-19 on energy management programs, and new opportunities to drive engagement in utility-sponsored programs. Last year, Smart Energy Summit was our last in-person event we were able to host in February in Austin, Texas. This year is a little different. Instead of hosting across 3 days, we will host our 12th annual Smart Energy Summit across the year. COVID-19, along with a growing focus on green energy solutions, has added new drivers to adoption of energy management products at home, as well as new interest in solar, electric vehicles, and other solutions that will help households save energy and become more self-sufficient. At Smart Energy Summit, we'll present our latest consumer research showing the impact of COVID-19 on attitudes and usage regarding energy at home, as well as the expansion and monetization of energy management and other energy-focused offerings through consumer engagement, new business models, unique partnerships, and innovative technologies. Virtual panels and networking sessions feature executive-level experts from multiple industries, including utilities, service providers, retailers, software providers, and manufacturers. We look forward to sharing more across the year with you. Join us for these upcoming sessions. February 23rd and 24th, Impact of COVID-19, Consumer Behavior and Energy Management, Home Services, Rethinking Utility Revenue Models, Energy Management Platforms, Accelerating Growth, DERMS, Solar, Storage, and Microgrids. On April 28th, MDUs, Leveraging PropTech for Smart Energy Management. August 4th, Next Stages of the EV Evolution. October 27th, Partnerships and Tech Advancements, and Shifting Customer Behavior, Energy Efficiency and Demand Response. Thank you for joining us at Smart Energy Summit. If you miss a live session, you can go back at any time to watch on demand. Go to Watch Replays and click on the session that you want to view. Have you created your own event agenda in SwapCard? Visit the Agenda and Watch Replay tabs to add sessions that interest you to your own event. You can go back to My Event to revisit any bookmarked sessions, sponsors, and items. We want to make sure that you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors. You can interact with them by visiting the Booths and the Sponsor tab. You can also bookmark sponsors or add items to your event to view later. Sponsors have uploaded extra materials for attendees. Make sure to visit sponsors that interest you to chat with one of their team members or save documents for later. We have dedicated meeting slots set up for break times between sessions. Continue the discussion by requesting meetings from others in the SwapCard platform. Schedule a meeting with another attendee or a sponsor by visiting their page. The panelists and speakers will be addressing your questions live during the stream. During the stream, use the question tab to ask your questions early in the presentation. Go to the poll tab to answer polls that will be discussed during the live stream. If you need help navigating SwapCard, please reach out to our team by mentioning @Parks Associates in the chat box or by contacting one of our team members via our company page.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us for day 2 of our Smart Energy Summit. And if you joined us yesterday, thank you for coming back. We certainly hope that the data and insights that we're presenting here is useful and valuable to you and your organization. The title of today's track is Energy Management Platforms, Accelerating Growth, where we really want to look at the adoption and use of different energy solutions and just how do we keep consumers engaged with those. I'm Patrice Samuels, and I'm an analyst at Parks Associates. And before we get into our discussion today, I do want to take some time to thank our sponsors, Bidgely, Austin Energy, Osiaco, Flow, and American Water Homeowner Services. I also want to thank our industry association partners who continue to support us in many ways. Now, when we talk about adoption of energy management programs, we tend to talk about awareness being a big factor, and the fact that, this has just not increased very much over the years. Now, we have been tracking this for some time, and as you can see here, there was very little growth that happened between 2018 and 2019. But again, there was no growth from 2019 to 2020. It really just remained consistent over the past year or so. Now, the majority of the growth from 2018 to 2019 was attributed to the increase in awareness of load control programs and time of use rate plans specifically. Now, we did see some growth in awareness of energy management and monitoring products in 2020. However, that was really counteracted by sort of a decrease in tiered pricing structures. So the overall number that you're seeing here in this chart really did just remain the same. Now, when we look at program adoption, we're seeing this as sort of a reflection of program awareness. So we saw growth in awareness of time of use rate plans in 2019, and then similarly, we saw growth in adoption over the same period. Now, the same can be observed for load control programs, and you can also see where the same pattern can be observed for awareness and adoption for energy management programs and tiered pricing. So we know then from the overarching conclusion is that driving greater awareness will be critical to driving greater participation in these programs and meeting whatever the objectives are for these programs. So we know that awareness is an issue where energy management programs are concerned. But after we get past awareness, there's the issue of maintaining consumer engagement. And we hear time and time again that consumer participation in these programs is sort of, good at first, but then it tends to fall off as time goes by. And when we talk about the barriers, to keeping consumers engaged, we often talk about things like the information being too complex. It makes sense that if consumers can't understand what the information or what it's telling them to begin with, then they can't use it to help them manage energy. Just basic information about what products are using most energy at any given time in the home can really go a long way. Now, the incentives need to be more appealing is just another one that we tend to hear a lot. Now, whatever the incentive is, if it's energy savings, consumers must perceive that the amount of money saved or whatever is being saved is worth the effort that they've put in. And we know that what motivates one person to save energy may be different from the next. So for one, it will be monetary benefits. For another, it will be knowing that their sacrifice in heat or air conditioning prevented some kind of all-out grid failure. And for that person that's really competitive, it might be knowing that their home is the most energy efficient home in the neighborhood or something like that. So the conclusion here is that more work must be done to understand the consumer before we even begin to develop programs that can work. Insights aren't actionable. Sometimes, we do get a number of graphs or charts showing us how much energy we've consumed at different points in the day. But what does that mean for me in energy savings? I probably wasn't even home at the time or don't even know what was consuming the energy. And even if the information is disaggregated enough to show that, a lot of energy was consumed when I was running the dishwasher or by the dishwasher, for example, all I know is that, I have to do the dishes. It doesn't really let me know, perhaps, if I ran the dishwasher at one time versus another, then it could save me more energy. So more actionable insights are sometimes needed. Now, the need for real-time information is another one, and this is connected to the need for actionable insights. If the information about energy use is only provided in my bill at the end of the month, then there's not much I can do about energy savings at that point. Accessibility to solutions is another one, such as smart thermostats and for some other advanced solutions that may save energy. This may also be a challenge simply because not everyone will be able to afford these solutions, and also not everyone will want to make those types of investments, for energy savings. So we keep asking consumers about the number of energy management solutions, just trying to get a sense of, which types of energy management solutions are most useful to them. So you see where easy to understand billing tends to stand out as the most valuable tool to save energy whenever we do research in this area, which I find interesting, that energy bills are perceived as most valuable, and this is really consistent year over year. We keep seeing that, and energy bills are definitely usually provided at the end of the month, I think, for most people after the fact or after energy is consumed. Real-time energy information is often provided as well as being useful. I think 14% of consumers rank that as most valuable, so that does have some value too, but energy bills just stand out as number one. Points and rewards for taking various energy actions, we see where only 11% rank that as the most valuable. And then actionable insights and alerts, we only have 7% of consumers that say these are most valuable. Now, this doesn't necessarily contradict the information from the previous slide, which was focused on the industry side about, actionable insights being important. Consumers were given a long list of options and were asked to select the one that was most valuable for energy savings. So they were really only able to select one. So there's an understanding that all of these solutions are valuable. They were just selecting the one that is most valuable to them. Now, we think familiarity might be playing a role in monthly energy bills being perceived as, one of the most valuable energy management tools. But we're seeing a similar trend here where we ask consumers how they perceive or how they prefer to receive energy insights and information. We know that, these days the actual platform that is used for information does play a significant role in the type of audience that you can capture, really. So we ask consumers how they prefer to receive personalized energy saving tips and insights. And as you can see here, where nearly half of consumers report that they prefer to receive this information through their monthly energy bills. And just over 40% report a preference to receive this through email. Mobile apps are growing in popularity, and they're increasingly being provided by utilities and other energy providers. We're seeing here where about a quarter of consumers prefer to receive information through their mobile apps. But the percentage who prefer to receive information through text messages and voice assistants, smart speakers, is slightly lower than the other platforms. And this may be, we believe, maybe speaking to the frequency with which consumers want energy information. We've also looked at the additional data, on frequency of which consumers prefer to receive information, and we found that, when we asked them how often they want to receive this energy insights and information, we found that monthly was the leading response. And as I mentioned before, it might be less helpful to receive energy information at the end of the month. And this is another thing that we're looking at, as it might, really just suggest that consumers are just not currently, not yet that engaged with energy management. So I'm going to take a pause here to see if we did have any questions about the insights and presentations. All right, so the first question I see is, great survey info. What is the N for in the most valuable question? So I'm assuming, let me go back to that slide. Right. N. Okay, usually on these slides, I'm not seeing which end we're probably referencing, but usually when we put ends on slides, it's usually to reference the sample size. So to give you a sense of how many people we talked to about this, which has implications, of course, for the margin of error that the information has, or that's in the information. Any other questions? All right, so it seemed like that was the last question, which means that we will now transition to getting some good insights from our visionary speaker, who is Abhay Gupta from Bijlee. And I will now ask Abhay to go ahead and present. Abhay will be talking about energy insights or energy data, and just the importance of this data in energy management solutions. So Abhay, if you're ready, you can just go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. Patrice, give me a second. Let's make sure that you can, my slides are shared fine.
We can hear you well, by the way. And yes, I'm getting the signal that your slides are already queued up and ready to go.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Seems like everything is working. Technology doesn't create barriers here today.
Perfect.
So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to people in the other time zones. Patrice, that was a great set of information that you shared. 100% agree with many of the observations that you're collecting. And we are here to break the barriers of generalist kind of energy management and provide the personalization that people are seeking on the right channels with the right content. So our topic for the conversation today is powering a clean energy future, which is sort of tied to energy management because, over the last decade, the energy management was connected to being efficient. But I think the next decade will be all about probably less about saving a little bit, but probably more about how do I use the energy at the right times from the right sources. Am I generating renewable energy from on my roof? Am I purchasing a renewable piece of energy? Am I storing it? Am I shifting it? All that stuff. So that becomes very important with the new resources coming on the grid, and probably more important than just the 1 or 2% reduction of the energy, although both of them would be fantastic together. Okay, so and then of course, as most people would know, but those who are new to Bijlee's introduction, Bijlee is about 10 years old company in the space, and our roots go back to data. And we have been the pioneers of extracting information from the energy data, specifically smart meters. And we are using that information to create value for all the stakeholders, for utilities, for consumers, and everyone. So we are going to highlight how data and artificial intelligence plays a role in the energy management and the future role play. Okay, so great. So without give me a second. Okay, without talking about what happened in Texas last week, I mean, it won't be it won't be appropriate. So we all know that millions of Texans were hit with brutal cold without power or heat for long stretches, and that obviously is a massive impact on lifestyle, on expenses, on people, etc. And you can see all over the news, and both in terms of blogs from people, reaction from people, look what people are saying, I feel powerless, has taken a whole new meaning. Or kind of bills, I mean, there's news of people having their bills in thousands of dollars, which is obviously not affordable by most people. So how do we support customers is very critical for utilities in times like this, which are we don't foresee such things happening, but in any possible scenario, we have to be prepared to be handling times like this. Now, of course, I don't know how many of you remember or have seen the Super Bowl ad by General Motors, but it was funny. They took the stab on Norway being the leading country. And then, of course, they have made a mission for themselves to have 30 new EV by 2025 and eliminate the traditional gasoline and diesel engines. That is going to, I mean, besides, of course, we all know how Tesla is selling its cars at what pace. all of this fuel together is going to create a massive impact on the grid and consumers and utility and consumers interactions. And so there is a totally new dimension in which we have to think about how are we going to support all of the extra burden or load on the grid, while it is all going in the right direction because it's a renewable, clean energy. But we do need a massive amount of infrastructure, consumer behavior, everything being plugged into one big equation to support such large, massive load on the grid. Right. So with multiple events, we can see that we are at an inflection point in the history. The solar prices have been dropping for a while. With Biden government coming into power and their pledge to the climate betterment and almost a $2 trillion fund, they're going to provide a lot more incentives for putting chargers for solar deployments, renewable adoption, and of course there are many utilities, not just utilities, actually different entities, cities. They've all put their own goals forward about net zero, carbon neutral by 2030, 2035, etc. So we are at a point where the winds are flowing in the direction, the big entities, the government, the utilities, the cities, they're all aligned and committed to make this happen. Now, what does what is our advice for the utilities, and how does data play a role in this? Okay, so our advice to all of the suppliers, energy suppliers, whether it's electricity, gas, retailers, investor-owned utilities, our advice is you have to win the customer to be future ready. You have to ensure that you are part of the customer's EV and PV journey via personalized relationships. And you have to use that relationship to build greater grid resiliency or reliability. Now, the question is, how do we do that, right? I mean, this is people say this is obvious, but how do we accomplish that? So we are going to talk about what can data and what can AI do for you with respect to those two items that we described in the previous slide. Okay. So one of the biggest untapped energy source of information is the energy usage data that is sitting in the data warehouse of many different utilities. We know that the adoption of smart meter has crossed its the top point, which means it's more than majority of the country has now smart meters, and the rest is adopting very fast. It started with 60-minute interval data, but it's pretty fast moved to 30, 15. Now we are seeing 5-minute interval data, and then at the end of it, we are also seeing inside the meter analytics and computing. So it goes down to literally 1 minute or even 1 second interval data. But for now, let's focus on what is available outside the meter in bulk, which is somewhere around 60, 30, or 15 minutes of interval data for almost all of the utilities who have deployed AMI smart meters. The value that we have harnessed so far from this data is still just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much information in the data. And you can extract that information and use that to personalize and motivate consumers, personalize information for consumers, help them save energy, but also motivate their actions for this entire equation to be solved about a massive load coming on the grid. And how do you manage that, right? So again, we'll jump into some of the examples of how it has the potential to change all the customer interactions. So I'm not sure how many, but I hope that many of you are familiar with one deep aspect of artificial intelligence that we apply to a technology called load disaggregation. And what it does is it helps us understand the consumer on what's happening in the house. Because if you can't understand your customer, you can't really serve them any better. So the step number one is, who are you as a customer? I want to understand you so I can give you personalized offers. I can give you insights and help you. So this technology, what it does is, it just like humans have fingerprints, appliances have fingerprints. And those fingerprints are all over the smart meter data consumption, distributed. So when appliances are turned on and off, they leave their fingerprints on the smart meter data, whole house data. And this technology extracts the appliance signatures to figure out what appliances were turned on at what time of the day, and how large are those appliances, and are they inefficient or efficient, What are the types of appliances? Am I charging my EV when? How big is the charger? Do I have an AC? Is it window AC, central AC? Am I running my AC in the peak hours? Do I have one refrigerator, two refrigerators? And with all of that, I would always tell people privacy comes first. Privacy is very important. And so this information is extracted via machines from the consumer data, stays with the machines, and then is shared by consumers, but it's not shared with any third party. So there is no privacy violation when utilities run technologies from sub companies like us on the data. But we all, us and utilities and everyone, is very, very careful about maintaining consumer privacy. But now, onto the beauty of this technology is you don't need any hardware. You do not need to put a sensor or plug level or CT clamps in the house. So it's massively scalable. Like if you have 200 million smart meter data, it is available to run on all of them. You don't need to take the time to deploy any kind of hardware in the house. It does not need customer inputs because most customers don't provide you the inputs. Maybe there's stats in the industry, maybe 1-2% of the customers actually come back, fill the surveys, and do stuff. So you don't want to be dependent on asking consumers questions. Otherwise, you would not be able to run this at scale. And at Bijli, we've dedicated last 10 years to developing this technology. So we have 17 patents on the topic in various areas, different appliances in different parts of the technology. Now, so from the technology, we can figure out, like I mentioned already about some of these things. When are you using your AC? Is the refrigerator efficient? Should it be replaced? What appliances are using the most demand in the house? What is the lifestyle of the user? Because you want to personalize your message to the lifestyle of the user. Are they people staying at home the whole day, therefore they're using energy in the middle of the day? Or are they both parents working, so there's no one in the home, but their peak comes as soon as they come back home, they're running their laundry, they're cooking, they're running their dishwasher, etc. And also, of course, do they have EV? Do they have solar in the house? And very soon we'll also ask the question, do they have battery in the house? And what kind of rate plans do they have from their energy company? So combining all of that starts creating a picture of a customer where we start figuring out who are you as a customer, and therefore we can supply you with much more personalized interactions. So now comes, we talked about two things: how to be part of the consumer's EV and PV journey and clean energy journey. And second was, how do we use that as an opportunity to manage our grid? So number one, being part of the customer's clean energy journey. I'm going to bring an example of Duke Energy, who we are working with, and how we are managing their customer's EV journey. So North Carolina, the goal for Duke is in North Carolina to have 80,000 EVs by 2025. That's an approximately 500% increase from the number of EVs that they have today on the road. It's an ambitious goal. And of course, it's electrification. It generates more revenue. It also works towards the clean, less emissions and clean energy future goal. Now, the challenge is when you put that many EVs on the road, you're going to have concentrated load on the grid, both in terms of geolocation, because as you know, you're not going to have a uniform adoption across entire territories. You're going to have parts of the locality where most people will buy EV really fast, and then you'll have parts of the locality which will be the last adoption. So you're going to have geo concentration, and then you have time of use concentration without any intervention. There'll be two peaks. One peak is when people come back in the evening and they start charging their car, they just plug in. The second peak would be at midnight, because many cars come pre-programmed to start charging at midnight. And at that kind of volume, you'll start seeing a different peak. Now, wouldn't it be beautiful if you can manage when to charge and when to distribute the load? You can do that, and the first wave of solutions basically worked around supplying or practically giving away a charger, or like a wireless charger, to the customers and say, we'll control it. Now, the other problem with this approach is when you start putting 100,000 EVs on the road and then possibly even going further, you can't really sponsor a $500 charger for the customers and control it all the time. So you do need scalable solutions, which are not going to have such a high cost per customer in terms of managing their load. And then, of course, the opportunity is you want to be part of the customer's life as they use and charge their car from a utility perspective. So how do you do all of that together? The part that we've created using AI is multi-pronged. Number one is an easy part where that is probably done by many different agencies, helping customers adopt EVs. Why not buy an EV? Motivate them, show them what's happening in their neighborhood, how many people are buying EVs. That's a motivation part. But when people buy an EV, now the first problem that utilities face is they don't know who has EV, because most people don't report back to their utility saying, hey, I bought an EV. I'm going to tell you. You don't have a reporting requirement. So we've seen solutions like utilities are going to DMV, and that is expensive data. And because of privacy, you only get the information at zip code level. You don't know exactly who has bought it and when they're charging. So there comes the AI to help. If we now bring back that load disaggregation technology, we extract information on who has EV. So literally in a minute, after we have processed all the data, we can help utilities understand which customers have the EV and when are they charging and what are their charging patterns. At the same time, if a customer charges the EV in a peak hour, then we can send a notification to customers saying, hey, you're charging your car in the peak hours. And here are the reasons why you should charge it in the off-peak hours. By the way, that's also the time when you try to move people to an EV rate plan, because EV rate plan is another incentive to charge the cars in the night, right? Or in the off-peak hours. And then third one that we're doing is, after helping manage, we are motivating customers. So we've created a program, for example, where customers can get an incentive or a credit every month as long as they charge their car in the off-peak hours, but we give them a little bit of margin. Hey, it happens. Sometimes you either charge by mistake or you had to because you're in an urgent situation. So we'll give you 3 strikes. If you stay within 3 strikes, then you still get your credit every month. But if you cross 3 strikes, then you don't get the credit. So there's a motivation for people to do the right thing. And they also have some margin to either make a mistake or charge consciously, but still earn their credit. Okay. So that's an interesting program because it's purely software. There is no hardware in the program, and it can scale to as many people in future. So it's future proof. You don't need to worry about how am I going to afford a $100 rebate or a $200 rebate across all the customers, right? Now, here is now comes even further details from personalization. Like Patrice talked about helping people understand, hey, I ran my dishwasher, I got to run my dishwasher, but did I run it? Could I have saved money by running it in a different hour? So when we tell people, hey, you charge your car in the peak hours, at the same time, we show them their usage for charging the EV down to the every instance of EV being charged. And you can see how 2 different instances in this example are being charged in the peak hours, while mostly the customer is doing the right thing, charging the off-peak hours. So that's the level of personalization we bring to the table without any hardware, purely software, massively scalable, help customers understand when are they charging car in the peak hours and they should shift it to off-peak and some margin and incentive. So we'll be taking questions on this at the end of the presentation, but this is one program that we wanted to share how AI and data can help with the adoption of the massive new load from EVs coming without being stuck with large rebates or hardware dependencies or how to enroll customers and infrastructure problems. Right. The second part was, other than EV, there was PV. When people put solar again, utilities don't have the connection with the solar inverters. So all utilities see in a meter is, what is my net? How much energy am I sending into the grid and getting it back to the grid? But what they don't know is how much energy is the solar generating. And when people have user, what's the size of the solar panels on the roof? And for different days and different parts, how do I forecast how much this user will be generating? Because once you know that information and you forecast it well, you can manage your grid better, because you know when I have energy surplus and how do I shift my appliances from other places to this zone when I have extra surplus, etc. What technology does here is purely from the meter data, we can extract the solar generation information on what is the size of the solar panels on the roof and what is the generation pattern, both for past and forecasted. So now consumer gets the information on how much am I generating, how much am I using, And then, because consumer cares less about what's going in and out of the grid, what they care about is how much am I generating and how much am I using in the house. And that information also helps utilities understand what's the forecast and how many people are adopting solar and how much will they be generating, connected directly with the weather forecast, right? So not going in as much detail as EV because of time constraints, but this is where how we also contribute to the solar side. And some comments back from our partners at Duke. Lang Renault, as Director of Electric Transport at Duke Energy, clearly says programs need to be running much larger and move much faster, and we have to push EV adoption, but we also have to figure out how to integrate them cost effectively into the EV load. Okay, the second part we said was, how do you manage the grid with personalized offers? So now we talked about being part of the customer's lifestyle on EV and PV, using that as an opportunity to manage the load for the grid. So as you see, the technology again allows us to have a lens in the house, which tells us saying, hey, what is happening in this house? What's the best offer I can put in front of this house? Is this house using an inefficient AC usage? So, will they benefit from a smart thermostat, or will they benefit from a AC tune-up because their AC itself is inefficient and thermostat is not going to help? Versus, oh, they were running AC for a lot more hours, like 10 hours a day. And having a smart thermostat would likely make it better in terms of number of hours they're running, or pre-cooling. And similarly, this is a house that has a pool pump, and it's a single speed pool pump. And so we can directly, and it's running in the peak hours. So two things can be done: move it to variable speed and program it to run in the off-peak hours, and so on and so forth. So this lens down to every home is very useful information. And how it converts into grid planning is that we have created hyper personalization or hyper targeting of the customers. So instead of running generic marketing like billboards and paper inserts and emails that go out to same customers, it's a fully hyper targeted customer to say, hey, I want all the people who have single speed pool pumps. Great, okay, right here. Or I want all the people who have single speed pool pump and they're running in the peak hours. Or I want all the people who don't have smart thermostat, because we can detect who has smart thermostat. Or I want all the people who are using more than a certain amount of energy in heating in the morning hours between 7 and 11 a.m. because that's my peak hours in the winters. So these are all massively powerful queries that you can run within minutes to target your customers, and therefore you can offer your customers with more personalized offers and make it meaningful for them. And so what it leads to is, from advice to action, an ecosystem of sustainability. Offering customers with discounts from partners, from manufacturers, from utility rebates, but they're personalized because we know what's happening in the house. So it creates a vibrant commerce with sustainable products and rebates, and now everybody's happy. Utilities are happy because they are managing the grid. Customers are happy because they're getting personalized information and they're getting rebates, which are highly personalized for them. And the manufacturers of the products and service owners are happy because they are generating more business for themselves by going directly to the customers who are relevant for their service. Right, to realize that vision, we launched a version of what we call the Smarter Marketplace, which is personalized for success. The first version has come out at Hydro One, who we are working to create personalized rebates and offering to say, okay, depending on your usage and your behavior and your best return, here are the offers for you, and they are put in front of the customers. So that is our contribution and progress towards connecting from advice to action, but all in highly personalized fashion. With that, I'm just going to share how we are growing, thanks to all of our existing partners and customers who are adopting this data and AI technology, and we see the growth of this technology happening very fast lately. So very, very excited. With that, I would invite questions and also let people know that we are happy to provide you access to what Bijli can do in your hands at demo.bijli.com. Patrice, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yes, sorry about that. Thanks for pointing that out. So I know that you talked earlier in your presentation, that utilities must understand their customers in order to build energy management solutions that can work. And certainly I touched on that too, that, in order to, consumers are just not a monolith, right? And, different consumers are going to be motivated by different things. So in your research or in your studies or use of AI then to disaggregate data and so on, have you found any segments that stand out as most, I don't know if it's most useful in developing targeted energy management solutions or anything like that? What segments matter in the energy management space is what I'm trying to ask.
I think there's no single answer. I'm trying to use how best to answer a question. But again, see, your personalized message is very important. There are few. One thing is real. People care when it hits them. Otherwise, people don't care, right? So let's say I started caring about my EV load only after I bought an electric vehicle. Before that, I didn't care about time of use and shifting my load too much because the difference between my peak and off-peak energy was 3 cents, 4 cents. It didn't matter. But when I bought the EV, and we're in an extreme zone where my peak and off-peak are 4x apart. My peak is 48 cents and my off-peak is 12 cents. So all of a sudden it hits really hard. And everybody in the house, me and my wife, then, okay, fine, we're going to move the dishwasher to the off-peak hours, etc., etc. So it hits only because there was an event in the house which say bought an EV. Similarly, there is a second set of event where high bill shock happens. So people start caring when their high bill shock happens, and especially in like you saw the Texas part last week. I'm sure everybody who's hit by a high bill, they're going to be energy conscious for probably next year before the human memory forgets something about that, or we make it happen. And third is low and medium income. A lot of LMI community absolutely cares about saving those $20 a month or having special programs. So I would say there are pockets. There's a pocket of new adoption of EVs and PVs, people who are very careful, and careful means interested in this side. Then you have the low income segment, which is interested in from the money aspect of it. And then you have bill shock, which is, the middle 80% of the population who generally only wakes up when it hits them. So the last thing I would like to say is, I think the new generation, the millennials, they probably care more about the environment and doing the right thing. So I think that as over the next 10 years and 15 years, you'll probably see a whole generation of people who are probably more conscious about the environment and not just driven by, I'm not saving enough money to care about it.
Got it. Thank you. All right, let's get another question here. So the first one is, how is the customer's lifestyle information collected without customer input? Is this done prior to smart meter installation?
No. So, of course, like we said, very few people actually answer the questions if you ask them, right? Customer lifestyle information is extracted from the smart meter data. For example, smart meter data shows us if you are at home in the afternoons or during the day, you'll have activity at the home. You'll be cooking, you'll be running laundry, you'll be doing stuff. But if you're not at home at all in the afternoons and you have both parents working, then you'll basically see a lull of activity and accept scheduled things like refrigerator running all the time, or maybe there's a pool pump. Things are not happening in the daytime. That's an example of lifestyle information extraction without asking consumer, but with the meter data.
Got it. All right. Let's squeeze one more in. Okay, so the new trend by consumers who buy or lease EVs is also to buy or lease solar panels for the house. How would that information be disseminated and consolidated without a smart meter AI program?
Without a smart meter, I would say yes, it is harder. Because if you don't have smart meter, you don't have the conduit of data. It's like I want the Fitbit service, but I don't want to buy the sensor on my hand. It's hard, right? I think without the smart meter, we have done some analysis. We can provide heating and cooling effects, maybe predict that you have an EV, but we can't figure out when you are charging the EV because without a smart meter, you have one reading coming out once a month. Right? But once you have smart meter, then all of that is disseminated easily with both solar and EV. And we showed all the cases of how solar and EV is separated from the whole signature pattern. And they can both be done in parallel, even if customers. I would say the trend would be people who have EV will buy solar and then they'll also buy battery at some point. So all of them will work together very well. But yes, having a smart meter empowers us to have that data.
All right, thank you so much. That is all. We are a little bit over our time, so thank you for staying over a little bit, Abhay, and thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. We will now transition. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we will now transition to our executive Q&A, and this will be led by Elizabeth Parks of Parks Associates, and she will be joined by Taylor Jansell of EPA Energy Star. And we're just going to take a couple of seconds here to transition to the Q&A.
Great, and welcome back. Thanks again for joining us at our 12th annual Smart Energy Summit. And thank you, Bijli, for that presentation. Really enlightening to see how data and metrics and can really influence the consumer in terms of understanding where energy savings is occurring and also the operational benefits for providers. It's been a great start to the day, and I'm really excited to bring Taylor Jansell, Smart Home Strategy Lead for EPA Energy Star, to join us on our virtual stage. So hi, Taylor. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So since 2007, Taylor has been working to advance the adoption of energy efficient, high performing products and is specifically focused in on how to leverage smart home products and services for effortless home energy management. So a perfect fit for our conversations that we're having this week. She leads the teams behind the Energy Star lighting product and the smart home energy management systems. So Taylor, again, thank you for joining us today. Let's go ahead and start and see if you can give us a brief introduction of your role and some of the latest initiatives that the EPA Energy Star is working on.
Yeah, thanks. So I operate in the Energy Star products group. And so, we have over 75 products that carry the Energy Star label and help guide consumers to the more efficient choice in each product category. And we have been working to integrate connectivity into various products as appropriate for about a decade now. And as a lot of my background has been in lighting products, when I introduced that connectivity to lighting products, it was right at this place in the market where our utility partners, who had heavily relied on rebating Energy Star light bulbs as their kind of bread and butter, the best bang for your buck in terms of low cost for incentive and high energy reward. We're at this this juncture where they were losing the ability to claim all the credit that they had been able to rely on those light bulbs for, and looking for new solutions. And as the connectivity market and interest had been growing, there were emerging opportunities to think in a new way to bring in a variety of different objectives for our utility partners and our consumers, and provide an Energy Star recognition for a whole system of products, devices, and services. And so that is how we emerged the program for smart energy management services and systems. And so it's a combination of service and devices, leveraging Energy Star products, but also other products that we don't label, to really help provide a national framework and platform for our utilities and for consumers and for private companies to leverage our brand, our reputation for energy savings, to help guide the market to find those more energy-focused solutions, but also to meet consumers where they are today. So, it's not talking about it's not a high bar to reach the consumer. It's based upon a set of minimum devices that include, smart lighting control and thermostats. This is largely based off of the success that we've seen with the thermostats, and a few other devices that just kind of help, that are, backed by your parks data that showed the devices that are most adopted by consumers, and then building off of that. So it's a platform that starts small but is infinitely expandable and customizable to support distributed energy resources, electric vehicle charging, and time of use pricing, demand response activity. So it kind of is a platform for all of those goals, and to really make it easy on the consumer. And how Patrice talked about, the consumer interest where it starts to wane after the beginning. This is to help cement those energy management and energy savings actions once that novelty is worn off, to make it really easy for the consumer.
Well, that's great, and we'll get to the consumer here a little bit more. But can you share a little bit about the size of your program and the number of partnerships that you all currently have, just to give our audience an understanding of how wide your reach is right now?
Well, we work with all of the utilities across the U.S. and, we have very strong partnerships with them, and they rely on our program to help provide a consistent platform for any program or product incentive program. So thousands of the utilities, and then the Canada as well. So Canada leverages our program very, very closely. So they translate and they adopt a lot of our product specifications. When it comes to the smart home market, we are just building that out. And so we have our device and our manufacturing partners, but we have a lot of engaged stakeholders as we build that program out.
That's great. And certainly, I'm sure a lot of our audience will be interested in potentially connecting with you, after our event and learning more about that. Let's talk a little bit about consumers and how much they care about sustainability. Tell us a little bit more from your perspective, what you think works best in terms of getting consumers' attention on energy efficient solutions.
Yeah, I think we do see a growing interest. We keep pretty close tabs on the growing interest of consumers in terms of their and what terms are resonating with them right now, and whether it's sustainability or climate or the environment. And so we are always watching and taking pulses of consumers to see what's resonating. But people also really care about money and saving money. And so we also really try to meet them with concrete energy savings when it comes to what to expect with our products. I think that we are also recognizing, it's important to pay attention to the data. And so we're guided by data. And so when consumers really want this still, the comfort, the convenience, the control, we're trying to make sure that with our brand promise, the Energy Star is energy savings without sacrifice. And so it's really important. We're giving energy savings. We're giving them a way to make saving energy and contributing to doing your part in the fight against climate change, very simple choice. But we're also trying to provide them the efficient alternatives to the products they already want to have in their life, and the ones that are delivering those promises of comfort and convenience and control.
Well, that's great. And certainly 2020 was a difficult year for probably everybody, businesses and consumers. Can you share a little bit about the impact of COVID on your organization, and then some of the challenges that you see in 2021? Certainly, we've had this energy crisis here just recently in Texas, which has brought a lot of attention to electricity and power and water for consumers, probably more than they ever paid attention to. But share with us a little bit about some of 2020, and then a little bit on looking forward with challenges this year.
Sure. I'd say, for our organization, we're all working remotely. We're paying attention to patterns and feedback from our partners. So, across the board in Energy Star, we've had leniency granted in different areas when it needs to. Things have slowed down quite a bit, and we actually run fairly fast for a government agency because we're a voluntary program. But the biggest impact to our program has probably been in the commercial sector with the Energy Star scores and benchmarking, where a lot of those scores are very much skewed because of the change of activity due to COVID.
Sure, yeah, certainly the commercial world with energy use coming down, and then residential with it coming up. We've got our audience on the other side of this, and I want to make sure that everybody knows to send in questions. And we actually did just get a question that came in, so I'm going to see if we can jump to that real quick, and then get back to some of the things we plan on talking about. So an audience question: does the Energy Star Smart Home program include PV inverts and smart chargers conversion efficiency?
We do. Yeah, that's a great question. We don't currently address it, but it's not excluded from our program. So the program for smart energy management is really open to support all sorts of smart products, and not just Energy Star products. So there's a mention and there's a nod to products that we would encourage systems to integrate that are earning the Energy Star. So there's like a minimum set of products, and then there's a set of encouraged products, and it's not even limited to that. So we want the whole program to be very flexible and dynamic, like the market is. And it's I will say, just in terms of it's something we're always looking at in terms of storage and conversion and efficiency, but it's not explicitly addressed in the smart home specification.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about utilities and business models and offerings, and really how you all are working with the utility players. So if you can share a little bit more about those partnerships.
Sure. So the program emerged to provide a consistent platform for utility programs that they can just point to us. We have third-party certification. We have off-the-shelf verification. It's a very robust program. And so utilities often rely on the Energy Star program for which products they're going to incent, right? And so we developed the Smart Home Energy Management System program to support the growing interest of utilities in this space. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of pilots throughout the country that are dabbling in this space. We're seeing some really exciting work with utilities themselves rolling out their white labeled smart home management program with incentivizing the DR participation through giving them credits to their marketplace. And so that, they give them a thermostat to start off and a hub, and if they participate in a certain number of DR events, then they get credit to get a smart light bulb or something like that. So it's a neat little model that we're seeing. And then we're also seeing some interesting explorations with pilot programs on rolling out in older communities, small businesses, low income. There's a lot of really great work being done to start learning about what these opportunities are and how they can benefit the utility in a lot of different ways. And I think that's always a big challenge because utilities are often very siloed. Their load shifting and demand and their efficiency are separated. And so we're trying to kind of shift that model and support them in doing so, to bring those together and bring those pools of money together to incentivize these more holistic programs.
Well, that's great. And certainly our data, this year's data that we got back from the field shows smart light bulb adoption at 13%, smart plugs now at 9%. And that smart light bulb number, is right there now with smart thermostat. So it's actually overtaking it. Our latest consumer survey had thermostats at 11%, although the previous survey was 13. So we've really been in that 11 to 13% adoption on the thermostats. And it's interesting now that the lighting is really surpassing adoption. So I think that's going to continue to be a big play. Can you share a little bit more about how your program is using DERMS, or the Distributed Energy Resource Management Systems, to help with managing those traditional capabilities?
Sure. We try to support, the way we built the what I call it SHEMS, Smart Home Energy Management System. So the way we built out the SHEMS was really to support that. I think with the most keen eye on electric vehicle charging, we see that as just a really, really high priority load to be managed through a smart home system. And so while we didn't make that mandatory, it was certainly in discussions because it's a high priority for our utility partners. So that as a really key DERM, but also, even the support of being able to do any load shifting in the program to accommodate distributed energy resources, either at the home or outside in the community. I think there's a lot of potential there that this system supports, and we're very keen on, supporting our partners to adjust and smooth transition to this clean energy economy. And so we're always looking for ways to integrate that and support our partners in that transition.
Well, what can you comment maybe a little bit on the Texas energy outage that we had, and how you think that may, bring some more attention to these types of new solutions, and really how this, how consumers may move forward, how the industry may move forward, given we had an incident like this. It's never really happened. So, do you have any comments on that?
I mean, just that I think we're going to start seeing a lot more purchasing of battery storage equipment and generators, of course, but I think people realize there are other alternatives right now, and the battery storage is a great solution, and energy independence is going to be more top of mind. People rely on their energy systems, and they're realizing Texas is a unique market, right? Texas is a bit of an island, and what that means for the state, I think that'll be interesting to see where that goes. We have a patchwork of utility systems across our country, and the resiliency factor is a really important element that we all need to reevaluate to make sure that our systems are resilient.
Yeah, and ERCOT is certainly taking a lot of heat. I think they announced the resignation of 4 of their board members yesterday, 4 board members who are located outside of the Texas area. They don't live in Texas, which is kind of interesting. So a lot more spotlight on ERCOT and the Texas grid and what's going on there. Let's shift a little bit to the MDU market. That's a really hot topic for our audience. It's a big area of research we're covering, because obviously the ability to scale and add products in MDU and multifamily environments, offers this really great opportunity. So maybe you could share a little bit more about any insights to the MDU market and any initiatives you might have there.
Sure. We're really excited about the interest we've received so far from service providers that serve the MDU market. I will just say, honestly, that wasn't our initial play. We wanted to create a home system, but it wasn't meant to be exclusive to single family homes. I see a huge potential and a really great opportunity with the MDU market for also combating some of this split incentive. Like there's just so many benefits from rolling out these systems and serving the consumers with amenities and being able to better control vacant spaces, but also serving up really great services for the tenants and the residents, and being able to just, like you said, scale. Like you're getting so much more energy savings and better energy management when you do it on a multi-dwelling level. So we've had interest from providers that serve hospitality markets, dormitory, senior living, and multifamily. So we're very excited about those partnerships and hope to see some of those certified soon.
Well, that's great. And yep, all the other building types that you mentioned are certainly a big play as well. Student housing, the independent living types of facilities, and really creating additional value for those companies operating those buildings. Let's maybe shift over a little bit to the appliance side of things. I know that you're focused in on lighting and then sort of all things that potentially have an impact with energy. And from outside research, not Parks Associates research, I understand that appliances do take up quite a bit of energy use in the home. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about Energy Star and the appliance side of things.
Well, it's funny because the very first product specification that we integrated a connectivity criteria into was refrigerators. And that was almost a decade ago that we started that work. And they've actually been one of the slower adopted products in the smart world. And what I've heard from our partners is selling the value of what the connectivity and that extra price tag, extra high price tag on those products has been a huge challenge. And the utility angle isn't quite as strong. You can delay ice making and you can give alerts when the door is left open, but those are not high value or really, significant energy saving types of ongoing values for the consumers or the utilities. So I think it's been a bit of a challenge to get smart appliances growing in terms of their market share, even though that's where we started. We didn't see real success until smart thermostats, and that was in 2017. And so, we really have, I think you can be pleasantly surprised to see what happens in the market, right? I don't think anyone would have expected thermostats to take off like it did, because especially the early ones were so expensive. So there's a much more clear value there, both on the utility side and to the consumer. So I think that's why we're seeing the success there. And then we have, the tremendous success with voice assistants. And I think that has also contributed to adoption of certain products like plugs and lights, because, the being able to control a light with your voice is much more convenient than doing it through an app. And so if you're used to doing it on the wall, you don't want to have to open up an app to control your light. You can do it with your voice, and that adds a lot of ease. So I think there's just as the Parks data shows, you see adopters of a certain product, they tend to adopt 6 or more products. And I think that that familiarity, that comfort, and then the ease of using systems helps grow on devices. And so we'll see them coalescing around different devices. So there's like the gateway devices. And so I think there's a lot of those gateway devices that we're seeing, and there will be different incentives and momentum around different gateway devices. So like, for example, electric vehicle chargers, we're going to see a lot more support. As you've heard from some of our other speakers, we're going to see a lot more growth in that area in EV adoption and support infrastructure. And so, that might be a new gateway product for smart home systems and more adoption of other devices. So there is that addictive nature of the technology that we're seeing unfold in different ways.
Yeah, I think you've got a point there. Consumers may be concerned about all the electronics that are going into their refrigerator, even for the potential of things not working down the line because of everything going in there. And we're still seeing adoption numbers for refrigerators and smart dishwashers and washer and dryers at the 3 to 6%. So it's slow. Slow growth, but
room air conditioners is a growing category. So we do see but there's more value there. So it's similar to smart thermostats, where it's a very high value control device for the utilities, and then there's a bit of a more value stream for them there.
Sure. Well, we've got another question from our audience, so let me throw this one out to you. Does Energy Star have a view on the circuit breaker panel, as there are new solid state controllable circuit breakers? Is that something you can comment on?
Well, so the smart home energy management system specification specifically integrates a plug load element as one of the minimum criteria, and that is a smart panel is one of those options. So it's very flexible. It's actually extremely flexible to like a smart strip to a smart panel. Like, we are looking to capture understanding and control of circuits and sockets. And so the more intelligence given into the system, the better it's going to operate and the better insights it's going to have for the users. So we certainly encourage all different types of solutions for that system.
Okay, great. So you're open to anybody contacting you if they have a product or service that they think could fit into the Energy Star program, in terms of being able to work or partner with you all, that you all are very open and looking for new partners to help lead the way?
Sure. And I'll just say, with the way we set up the smart home energy management system program is really to partner with a service provider that curates the entire experience for the user and for all the players. So it's that's how we've addressed interoperability and security and a singular experience. So this program is built around us partnering with service providers, and service providers leveraging all of the players in the market that support that system, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of products and support services that feed into the system that would not necessarily partner with us directly, but support an overall system that we would certify and can use the Energy Star mark.
Sure, and that certainly highlights, again, the importance of partnerships, and that we are pulling from different ecosystems within the home, on platforms that are really creating an enhanced user experience, as well as doing all sorts of other things on the business side that can be good. So thank you for that. We only have about 1 more minute, so I want to see if you can close us out here with what you think might be the biggest catalyst for your program in the coming years.
Well, I mean, we're very hopeful that this program is going to take off. We kind of just need a few early pioneers, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So once we have certified systems in our program, then our utility partners will be able to look to us to specify which systems they want to deploy in their territories, whether it's at a pilot or a full program scale. And as we look to the next 3 to 5 years, we are going to be moving to a new phase of this program. So once we start getting the data in, so we can actually dig into what we're seeing in terms of delivered savings by these systems, we'll come up with a metric, as we have with smart thermostats, to therefore set a bar of performance of savings delivered through these systems. And so we'll be very much working with our partners to better understand what the true potential of these systems are and what types of savings and the range that they can deliver, so we can really launch better support for energy management systems and allow for even more flexibility, because it's performance-based rather than so prescriptive around certain products, but it would be very performance-based. And so we need a lot of data and analytics to get us there, but that is where we're going in the next 5. So right now, it's a very open platform. It's like, if you can perform these capabilities with these type of products, you're in. And then in the future, it'll be if you can deliver this amount of savings through your system. So that's where we're headed in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, that's great. Well, we certainly appreciate your perspective, an industry expert who's been in this for a really long time. And thank you very much for joining us today. I know our audience got some good insights from you, so thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So that is going to end our executive spotlight. Thank you again, Taylor, for joining us today. And we are excited to bring our panel of industry experts together to continue the conversation. So we'll be back in just a minute. Thanks for being here.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Capice, and I am a Strategic Account Manager for Parks Associates Executive Conferences and Custom Marketing Services. First, I want to thank our sponsors for supporting our event today. Your combined and individual support helps make our events possible. As you may know, Parks Associates is a woman-owned and trusted market research firm with an excellent reputation for our research and executive conferences. While 2020 is a year that we will certainly never forget, it remains our goal in 2021 to serve and support our sponsors through our year-long virtual conferences and custom marketing services. Our conferences offer a unique combination of industry expertise and extensive consumer research and analysis, ensuring sponsors visibility to the right audience of our senior executives throughout the year. Connections, the premier Connected Home Conference, is celebrating its 25th year and hosting more than 1,300 senior executives from the smart home, security, connected health, energy, and home automation industries during sessions throughout the year. Our 12th annual Smart Energy Summit addresses the evolution of the customer utility market, the impact of COVID-19, and new opportunities to drive engagement in utility-sponsored programs and energy-efficient solutions. Parks Associates' 8th annual Connected Health Summit addresses opportunities for connected health solutions to empower consumers, caregivers, and providers to meet the growing demand, independent living, chronic care management, remote access, and wellness and fitness solutions. Our 4th annual Future of Video, OTT, Pay TV, and Digital Media brings together senior leaders to share insights on consumer adoption, churn, and spending on services, including the role of the connected CE in the growth of video viewing. If you are looking for new ways to engage with our audiences, increase your brand awareness, and network with our industry leaders, I would love to share with you on how to partner with Parks Associates to help provide your brand more visibility.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are about to move into the panel discussion segment of the track, and we'll kick that off with some intros from this very diverse group of panelists. And then we'll get into some panel questions, and then we'll make some time towards the end to take your questions. So with that said, let's get those intros going, and we'll kick it off with Bob Champagne from Grid4C. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Patrice, and good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to be here. We've certainly enjoyed the event over the last 24 hours, and looking forward to the rest of today and tomorrow. I am Bob Champagne. I am General Manager of North America for Grid4C. We are an advanced analytics and data science company focused on the predictive application of AMI and smart meter intelligence and a number of other data streams, including smart home devices and assets on the power network, and using that to drive innovative and useful applications across the business. As many of you know, we've been part of the conversation for a long time, dating back to 2013. I know Abe talked earlier about a lot about load disaggregation and predictive intelligence, and back in that time frame, there were really, you could probably count the number of organizations that were doing that on one hand, and half of them were probably focused on the direct hardware that was being used to assess equipment and how certain appliances were consuming on the network, and we were among those who were actually doing it without the hardware and being able to identify signatures and be able to detect appliances and consumption patterns, and then use that for innovative business applications. Since 2013, our focus has been on the predictive side of that, those analytics and creative applications, more creative applications of that intelligence across the value chain. I would say, I saw a quote yesterday. As an old quote from Henry Ford, I saw it cross my LinkedIn feed that said, if you ask customers what they want, they would have said before cars, they would have said faster horses. And in our particular case, we've been looking for how can we use the analytics to really transform the way our business model operates. And so there are three areas Grid4C focuses on. One is using the smart meter analytics and intelligence to influence the customer experience and customer engagement aspect, which I think you see on the left side of the slide, if it's still there. There it is. And so for that, you'll see us inside. You see our analytics inside of a number of customer engagement channels, mobile apps. You heard us inside of the Constellation or informing the Constellation Home Services program from Mike yesterday, where we're providing load disaggregation, fault predictions and diagnostics, predictive next best actions, and even rate and pricing optimization. So we're kind of the analytics inside to many customer engagement and predictive engagement platforms. We also have a body of focus on operational intelligence. So I think you'll hear from a DERMS provider later today on how our load forecasting at the customer level is actually influencing the ability to manage and orchestrate the grid. So behind the meter load forecasting, EV predictive insights, grid asset fault predictions, and simulation and optimization of the DER ecosystem. And what we're really proud of, or we're about to launch here in the next month or so, is we've been involved for the last couple of years in the testing and certification of our analytics inside of the smart meter. And so what you're going to see with the launch of equipment like the Itron Riva Centron smart meter is you're going to see Grid4C analytics inside the smart meter, which will have more direct applications in real time to the smart home and other aspects of the customer experience.
All right, thank you, Bob. Next, we'll hear from Brett Lasher from Cox. Brett, if you're all set, take it away.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Patrice, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those of you still out on the West Coast. I work at Cox Communications, and those of you who aren't familiar with Cox, we're the largest privately held telecom in the U.S., part of a larger holding company, Cox Enterprises, which is over 120 years old, and serves 6 million homes and businesses across 18 states in the U.S. I sit within our new growth and development arm of the company, which is considered our innovation arm. So looking at new ways to commercialize opportunities for our business. And I lead our smart resources or energy theme. So looking at new B2B and B2C opportunities in the energy space. This slide here is a bit of an eye chart, but I think just two points I wanted to make before passing it along. I think, based on our core business, we look at this space perhaps a little different than others or many of you at the conference. And so, our core business is broadband and some of these other services in the home. And so we view energy management as a broader portfolio of connected services that actually already have permeated into the customer's home and will continue to kind of aggregate with it within the home. And I think you'll see as we'll talk in the panel about how that informs how we think about our solution in this space. And then secondly, in terms of how we think about home energy management in particular, we kind of think about it in 3 buckets. We call it inform, control, and optimize. So inform is kind of the old reporting around energy. How much energy did you use? Where? How? Some of the HERS reports has been around for a while. Kind of the here and now is the controlling of devices. So linking your devices, being able to see their status and control them. But where the real value lies, where the kind of the golden goose is being able to take this information and really drive optimization or automation within the home. So actually driving towards those insights and then actually be able to take action to increase energy efficiency and eventually save money for consumers. So we'll talk more about kind of how we think about that in the panel, but just wanted to kind of provide a preview of how we're thinking about this space.
All right, thank you, Brett. And now we'll move to Håkan Ludvigsson, and Håkan is with Eleq. Go ahead, Håkan.
Thank you. So my name is Håkan Ludvigsson, joining you from London. You can see the dark behind me here. So we're a SaaS company, software as a service, based in Sweden and the UK, and we help utility companies to engage their customers, and we focus almost exclusively, I would say, on delivering white label mobile apps for utility companies or the underlying software development tools to make kind of empower utility companies' own development teams to build similar digital products. And I think we saw that earlier in the presentation that mobile apps is becoming more and more sort of a channel that the customers are asking for to sort of engage with their energy data. And we're seeing that maybe I'm assuming that those stats were American. I think we're seeing that sort of development even faster in Europe, where the market is mostly very competitive, and in the UK, I would say aggressively competitive market. I think we had 10 plus utilities go out of business in the last year. It's relatively a tough market. So here it's all about like giving the customers something of real value, something that's not a nice to have, not like an email home manager report doesn't cut it. You need to give the customers something that they value to the point that they're willing to stick with their supplier, rather than swapping to the next one at the end of the contract period. So we're a relatively small organization, 40 people, I think that I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
All right, very interesting. Thank you, Håkan. And now we'll move to Joe Miller, and Joe is a principal supervisor of DTE Energy. Joe, if you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you once again. I've been coming to this conference for a number of years talking about our platform. DTE Energy is serving 2.2 million customers in the southeastern Michigan area. And we launched our mobile app in 2012, focusing on leveraging the AMI infrastructure. We were one of the very first, if not the first, utility to do so. We now have about 10% or 200,000 of our customers that have downloaded the app and are using it. And as you kind of can see in the slide, our sophistication around accelerating the growth of the program really kind of goes with the customer journey and really understanding how the messages they need at each step of that journey really needs to be targeted in the channel that is most relevant and provides the messaging that is most relevant at that point. So when a customer downloads the app, they have no idea what they're going to be able to do with the app. And so what you're trying to do at that point is make them aware of the app and provide them the basics. As they adopt the platform, you want to give them more education about how to use that information to do energy savings activities or even home improvement opportunities. As they become more of an active user and we're starting to see their engagement, we want to make sure that we're sending them even more information about how to grow the platform. And as they become more of a loyal customer, you want to start engaging them at a, here are more things you can do in the app. And at some point, we want them to upgrade to getting an Energy Bridge. An Energy Bridge is a device that allows them to see their energy in real time and allow them to also connect smart devices. And what we want them to do is install thermostats and have that connected to the platform. And then we can disaggregate what their HVAC load is, or we can connect smart plugs and disaggregate loads at a discrete appliance level. And then what we want to do then is then continue that process again about how additional connected devices can help them further optimize the energy they're using. We've been doing this since 2012, and we've learned a lot along the way. I've since recently have moved over into our renewables program, and we're now building these same features into our renewables program so a customer can see not only how much energy they're using, but how much of that energy is renewable.
Great, thank you very much, Joel. And now we'll move to John Romero from Landis & Gyr. Go ahead, John.
Well, good morning and good afternoon and good evening. Thanks for having us on the panel. And I hope we can do this in person someday soon. It's really looking promising, I think. But just to start to give you a little background on myself, I'm currently the VP of Industry Solutions at Landis & Gyr, and I'm fairly new in the role, about 7 months. Previous to Landis & Gyr, I spent 30 years at Springs Utilities, which is a 4-service municipal utility that provides water, wastewater, gas, and electric to a combined meter population of about 500,000. And during that time, I had the opportunity to lead, almost every area within those different commodities. But I can tell you that the energy topic in the energy area is really near and dear to my heart. So it's great to be speaking with everyone today. Coming to Landis & Gyr was a great opportunity to utilize some of that background to really achieve the purpose of Landis & Gyr, which is helping the world manage energy better. I mean, our goal is, and our focus is on the purpose first, and that then translates into how we accomplish the purpose and then what we do. And we've been in business for more than 100 years, and I believe that's less than 1% of companies can claim that achievement. And we've done that by focusing on our more than 3,500 worldwide customers and evolving our technology as the industry continues to evolve. Starting with a metering technology, and then moving to AMR and AMI, and now looking at next generation of providing grid edge solutions with hardware, software services to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our customers, both in smart grid and smart city areas. And because our solutions are 10 or 20-year investments, it's critical that we not only look into the future of what's transforming the industry, but also that we're forming strategic partnerships with technology leaders and our customers to understand their challenges and to also leverage their investment to develop innovative solutions which are going to address areas such as consumer engagement and energy efficiency and demand response. So this becomes even more critical as the adoption of EVs and DERs is accelerating, and how the utility business model just continues to change and provide new solutions to the consumer. And, you know, a quick example is that, you know, we put a lot of effort into controlling thermostats to provide demand and energy reduction. And now think about how electric vehicles are kind of the next HVAC discussion. So I'm looking forward to getting into some details today and talk about how we partner with customers to develop ways of capturing the benefits of customer adoption of disruptive technologies, and how those technologies can be leveraged for energy efficiency and demand response without creating a burden on customers who are looking to participate in these programs.
All right, thanks for the introductions, everyone. And we'll now move into our actual discussion, but I do want to kick it off with our poll question. Now, the poll question, you can find that in the live discussion section of the SwapCard platform to our audience. And there's a poll tab there where you can participate in the poll. So I want to kick it off with that. And the question is, which of the following do you think will keep consumers engaged with energy management services? And the options are easy to understand energy bills, points and rewards for various energy savings actions, insights on how the various actions will affect your energy bill, and alerts when energy consumption is going over budget. So I'll give you a few minutes to answer that while I direct that question over to our panelists. So panelists, same question. Which of those do you think will be most engaging for consumers for energy management? And I do know that I presented some data on this earlier. So we're not thinking about what the data said now, we're thinking about your thoughts. That's what we're trying to capture here. Your thoughts on which one of these will be most valuable in energy savings for consumers. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And, you know, I looked at the 4 choices and I've been kind of pondering them for a couple of days since you sent them, Patrice. And you know, my first reaction is they're all important, obviously.
Right.
I think when it comes to moments of truth, which someone used to refer to it years ago, you know, I think the billing area is certainly a big one in terms of information on their energy bills, easy to understand, and kind of, you know, where they're getting certain bill shocks and things like that. But I would say, you know, we've kind of gone through an evolution here, or maybe a hierarchy, right? We started this with providing better information, you know, being able to see information about your bill, how your bills were changing, what's driving your bill. I think that's migrated to, you know, being able to show that and interact digitally, right? So customers are now able to get an alert when they get a bill shock, or they're able to see their disaggregation on their mobile device or on their in-home display. But I think the next iteration of this is going to be around what we can do from a predictive standpoint, and how are we going to be able to tell customers, by seeing what information we have, what our ability to predict certain faults in appliances, you know, and to show them something that they can't see, and something they're not expecting to hear from us that would be a pleasant surprise. I had a client once tell me, you know, it's about being friendly and helpful, easy to do business with, and providing smart value. And for us, it's that smart value. How can you get ahead of the customer and show them something and predict something that's going to help them manage their consumption environment?
Okay, so if you were to choose one of these, it would be the energy bills, if I'm hearing you correctly. But going forward, you do think we need options that are more predictive?
Yes.
And reactive. Got it. Okay, Joel, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so my experience is that, you know, the one thing you mentioned was the points and rewards. The points and rewards is a it's a nice incentive, but it really doesn't change the needle very much at all. Although they say they want points and rewards, when you see what they actually use and how they interact with points and rewards, we've seen very little activity or uplift in engagement as a result of that. So if you were to ask me, you know, which of these should be pulled off the list, I would choose that one. So the next one would be like, well, which of these are important? And it gets back to, it depends where they are in their life cycle. And so in the beginning, it's all about bill and bill management. I don't want a surprise bill, or I want to lower my bill, are kind of the two motivations at that point. But as they become more and more engaged with their energy usage, they're not really seeing a whole lot of difference in their day-to-day. They're seeing it seasonally, but not in a day-to-day point of view. Where we start to see their highest level of engagement is by having connected devices. And then back to what Bob was saying, what they want to be able to see is what's the impact that connected device is having. I want to be able to monitor that device. So two of the key stories we have seen repeated is, hey, by the way, my sump pump is either now on and not doing anything. It's just running continuously. So I now know that I have a sump problem. Or the reverse, which is I know that it normally is running and I now see that it's not running. And so in our basements, that's a $10,000 bill if a sump fails and they have flooding. The other side of that is air conditioning. Being able to see that their air conditioning is cycling more often, meaning they have a maintenance issue, or they're seeing that it's not running at all, which means it's failed. And the thing is when it's failed, they can also see that the energy that it's consuming is just much higher. So back to what Bob was saying, being able to predict that failure is really kind of the next horizon customers are looking for.
All right, thanks. Interesting way to look at it. Which one is least valuable? All right, Håkan, did you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think what Joel just said was really resonates with sort of the data that we've seen. Certainly, the points and rewards element is it's not working on long term. It's too little. It's too much. It's too manipulative. It's not actually tying in with the real sort of utility of these tools. And I would say sort of when we look at people who use our products, our mobile apps. Why it's kind of two different what you said here about different parts of the life cycle. So in the early days, it's typically about I'm curious about my consumption, and then sort of energy disaggregation is one of the top features that drive people to try out a mobile app for their energy usage. So we sort of by over and over A/B testing these different kinds of messages, we see that's one of the ones that's converting the best. So people are really genuinely curious about it, but they don't keep coming back and looking at that pie chart or that itemization of the bill month after month for any extended period of time. So when we ask them, after 1 year, after 2 or 3 years, why do you still have this app on your phone? And why has this earned a almost semi permanent spot on your phone? The answer is typically about either sort of one of three things. Either they find that the alerts are really important. So I would put that. I don't know if engagement is the word, but it's value for the customer. I would say alerts is really high, because you do want to know before it's too late if you're about to get a really high bill. And second, that our product keeps learning about your consumption, so it will give you more and more personal advice over time. So that's sort of the second thing. I think people will find that, now it told me that it identified, that my heat pump is inefficient and that it might be time for service or something else. And then the third thing is for those people who use sort of tie this in with a smart tariff or a home automation product. For them, it's like it becomes a really key piece in their everyday. So I think this is where this has to evolve, and I think as a utility, you really need to think about that. Sort of how can you, if not own, then at least play a major role in that sort of that journey for the customer when they're connecting more and more of their appliances to the grid.
Got it. Okay, any different thoughts before I check out what the audience thinks?
Well, I have a quick thought.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, just wanted to share a couple things. And one, when I looked at this question, I looked at it and tried to make it a little more personal of what keeps me engaged in certain things. And I started thinking about other industries such as banking, right, and our credit cards. And, as we start to move into that direction, most of us probably get alerts when we use our credit card or credit card is used somewhere, and that keeps us pretty actively engaged. And so I think as the energy industry continues to evolve, having customers get push notifications, alerts, some of that forecasting that we've just talked about, I think that keeps consumers more involved in what's happening. Otherwise, I'm in the industry for 30 years and I don't spend much time looking at my energy bill, I promise you. And this is what I do. So I can't imagine anybody else would be really engaged in trying to look at their energy bill every single day. But if you're getting some notifications that are telling you, this light has always been left on, or you're using a lot of energy at the wrong time, or your electric vehicle is charging at peak times, when you're getting information like that, I think it keeps you engaged in what we're doing and how you can change your behavior along the way. And for us, we partner with a company called Paygo that is giving you more choice and gives you real-time information and allows you to pay your bill when you want. That kind of engagement with consumers allows you to take a little bit more control, and I think really helps the consumer in the end. But focusing on other industries that are providing this information is critical, because we're going to be compared, our utility industry, against all the other industries that are providing this kind of service.
Great. Thanks.
Just a subtle distinction from, and I agree with everything that was said. When I think about the hierarchy we started with, give them information, give them more alerts, and then ultimately, can you get it more value added and predictive? Some of the items, some of the areas that John described. I think it's important to note that utilities can do this today. In most cases, now that they've hit that tipping point with smart meters, right? And we have the ability to identify in a load signature without actually censoring the equipment, to be able to identify in the signature that something is getting ready to fail. That is something that doesn't require another layer of investment. It can be done today with the information we have. And so will it get better as we start to move this intelligence closer to the smart home and we start connecting devices? Yes, but our ability to do that today as an industry is more than possible.
Great, thank you. All right, well, let's see what the audience thought. And I'm seeing here where insights on how various actions affect energy bills stands out for the audience. We have 43% of the audience thinking that's most valuable. Following that is the points and rewards, interestingly, for various energy savings actions. And then we have a little bit of a tie here for alerts when energy consumption is going over budget, and easy to understand energy bills, or if we're both tied at 14% apiece. So that's interesting that we have such very diverse opinions here on what will be most valuable. Did anyone want to chime in on how different the audience response is before we move on?
Yeah, I guess I think this is quite a good example of when we talk about lots of other kinds of products, we usually we build a new product for a niche market segment and we expand out from there. But we're talking about utilities. We have them literally everyone is a customer of a utility, and we have really diverse customer bases that we need to serve with these products, and people need different things. So I think, honestly, I think it's there's not like that one magic kind of silver bullet that just kind of does the trick for everyone.
Yep, makes sense. All right, so I know I did call out those 4 options, but certainly there are several other options and several other tools and solutions out there that are being used to help consumers to manage energy. So I know a lot of you guys talked about, moving from, just presenting that baseline information to making the information more actionable, and then, moving into something that's more predictable. So what then are other solutions that you find very valuable or very helpful to consumers to manage energy?
Yeah, I'll start if you guys don't mind. And I think, the common theme that we've heard from a number of panelists, both on this panel and earlier speakers, has been, the concern or the issue around persistent engagement, where I start using my energy management application. It's exciting, and then usage or interaction declines over time as I've done all the different features or functions. I don't look at my energy disaggregation on a daily basis. And so we look really hard at how do we increase persistent engagement. And we have probably a slightly different approach from many of the folks here. We look at this once again, stealing from my intro, as kind of a portfolio of connected services. And so we've developed an application which we're piloting right now, which is basically a combination of home automation and home energy management. And so I kind of joke that home automation is kind of the sexy that people every day pull out their phone to turn on their light, to open their door, to look at their video doorbell, but it's not what really drives value. And home energy management is kind of the sizzle. It's what drives the value. So if you can, offer the consumer other options or value to drive them to continue to interface with energy management, we think that's kind of a win. And then, second and third with that, it has to be real-time data. So it can't be old, month-old data. They want to know what's going on now or very recently in the past. And then third and last is it has to be easy for them to interact with. So, we talk a lot about driving insights and alerts. We have to be able to push insights to the customer where they can act on those in a click of a button, or hopefully eventually, once they trust the application, automate those actions to take those actions for them.
Yeah, I think, Patrice, I would say that it's more, it's more than just doing something new and doing something creative. To me, it's about how do we take the energy intelligence we have from the customer and we've discerned from that, how do we make that more woven into the fabric of the business, into the fabric of the customer journey, right? So if we look at the ability to make that part of the customer engagement process, or make it part, we heard yesterday from Constellation where they talked about home services, right? Where we can use a prediction about a particular appliance failing to allow the home services product to make an offer to that customer in a very profitable way, roll a truck, service the equipment, and beyond. And I think that is not necessarily a new service, but it's how do we weave our intelligence on the customer into the nature of the current services we have.
Interesting. Okay. Any other thoughts on, just solutions that were different from the ones that we called out in the beginning that might be even more valuable than those?
So the things that we've always kind of focused on is what's the problem the customer's trying to solve. And so we look at a hierarchy of problems that they're trying to solve. They kind of fall into the areas of safety, security, comfort, and convenience. And if you kind of can satisfy those primary needs, then you can get into lower level needs such as, things like resilience. Is my system up and running, and is it running as I expect? Or you get into things like, am I getting enough of my energy from renewable resources? Or can I control my home so that when I walk out of the home, all my presets are being executed? So the thing is, we're looking at customers that are checking in on their household while they work third shift and making sure that the house is secured and everything is operating as normal. Or during a storm, they can determine when their power is back on without having to actually go there to check on it, or to see if their power is on when they're not there. So the thing is, I think it all depends what problem you're trying to solve for the customer. So we look at things like, instead we look at sessions, we look at interactions. What are they interacting with, and how often do they need to interact with that device? So if everything's going fine, there's no need for them to have a session or an interaction. But if things are not going well, we want to be there for them at that moment and solve the problem of the moment that they're trying to address.
Got it. All right. So I didn't hear a lot of specific tools and solutions, but I did hear sort of a lot of key considerations, like we need to be solving the challenges that consumers are facing in the moment. We need to provide real-time data, or data that's actionable, and data that provides real value. So there are a lot of key considerations that came out here, which is really a good transition into the question I wanted to ask next, which is about return on investment, because we know this is often an issue, which is why, as we talk about keeping consumers engaged, the fact that a lot of consumers don't perceive, after they've tried it for some time, and see the kind of reward that they're getting on the effort that they're putting in, sometimes the effort level tends to fall off because the reward is just not meeting expectations, or just not worth it. So tell me a little bit more about the importance of ROI, and just what other barriers on top of that do you think are limiting consumer engagement in these solutions?
Well, I would talk from an ROI standpoint. I would say there are two ways to influence ROI, right? You can influence it on the top line, or the bottom line. If you're a utility with a deregulated business that provides home servicing and those kinds of or other forms of energy management, then you heard yesterday a clear version of the ROI from Constellation, right? If we can pinpoint customers that have a high propensity to make a decision, and it's a valuable piece of information, that can directly be translated into higher penetration for those services and higher profitability. I think the flip side of it is if you're a utility, and you may be a utility that has a demand side management budget of $60-100 million, and you're still marketing your program in a one size fits all way, regardless of any knowledge about how and when and how will that customer use certain types of appliances, then you have the potential to shave that cost by 20 or 30%. And so those are, they're ways for utilities to attack the budgets, the marketing budgets, and make them much more effective and efficient. And then also on the top line, if there's a ability to actually grow revenues, that's a real strong set of possibilities.
Great.
Sorry to interrupt, but I would approach this maybe from the consumer side too, and talk about personal ROI, right? And so my return on investment, my investment is time, and I don't want to spend a lot of time managing my energy consumption for a very small return, a few bucks a month. And so I think there's two places here to maybe look, and that is, something really easy has to be put in place. It's something like a set it and forget it. We set our timers, we set our lights, we set those things. Our HVACs, we set those, and so we are, moving towards energy efficiency because we have a thermostat that allows us to control at certain times, and then we can override it very easily, whether it's with our voice or with your phone. There's an easy way to change the behavior there, and so I think from a personal ROI, it's really important to make sure you have a set it and forget it mentality, but also to make sure that customers, I think we touched a little bit on this, have the ability to see what's happening in real time and more real time. And as one of the things that we look at Landis & Gyr, we're moving towards our new Revelo meter, having Sense technology built right into the meter. And most of you are probably familiar with Sense and the ability to disaggregate load in the home. Well, having some real-time feedback, I think, is really important for customers, talking about blending that engagement with customers, but also that ease of use, so that you're constantly getting information as you set it, right? I don't want to be bombarded with information, but I want to set limits as to what information I'm getting. And then maybe on the other side of things, I believe also that you're going to get customers to be more engaged if you start looking at rate modifications. As utilities start to see more and more information at the grid edge, and they're starting to see how electric vehicles are impacting the distribution system, how DERs are affecting the system, you're probably going to see various incentives come out of that, because it's going to cost utilities money to change the way they do their utility model. And so nothing changes behavior like a little bit of money that's coming out of your pocket at the wrong time. So I think utilities will also take advantage of that and be able to create incentives for customers so that they are engaged in what's happening and be able to send them information so they can change their behavior.
I guess maybe I've got a slightly different perspective on this. We have, I think, sort of behavioral science is a quite big part of what we do, and I think we're sort of jumping to conclusions about the return being money necessarily. So what customers want, like if you're building a highly addictive product, addictive in a good sense here, we're really looking for things that are triggering dopamine for the user, right? So that can be, obviously, if you're saving lots and lots of money and you find it fun, that's great. It will really reinforce you to be motivated and excited about coming back to it. But there are other drivers as well. And when we looked at one of our utility clients, they've got about a third of their customer base that have started to use the mobile app. When we asked them, like, why are you doing this? Why do you keep coming back to the app? In addition to those kind of features I mentioned earlier that are driving it, and people are only about a third of the people are talking about sort of savings and financial incentives as being the prime motivator. The other two are one is on kind of the environmental side of things. They want to sort of that's sort of a driver that's becoming more and more important, certainly during this past year, I think. And the third one is really the just the kind of the excitement you get from seeing your technology being put to work for you. So, for example, people who connect their electric vehicle and have that being charged smart with a smart tariff, it's not so much that they're saving like €1, pound or something per night that they charge at the right hour. It's more that they can kind of wake up in the morning and see that their technology has done work for them during the night, and that kind of makes them feel really good about it. Kind of, I don't know, kind of same way I'm wearing one of these wearable, what we call like fitness tracker rings, and it's I don't really know. I don't necessarily do anything with that data about how I sleep at night, but it's I don't know. It's like it's an exciting thing to keep track of. So it's kind of interesting other perspective, I think. But obviously, lowering those barriers and will make the return on effort or investment lower. In any case, any kind of investment you're after, so making things easier is obviously the key.
Thank you. Yep, that's a very important point. Brett, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just real quick. I think one point to mention that we think about is, our application is in partnership or concert with utilities. So we're going to market alongside utilities. And from an ROI perspective, we kind of view energy management and the base home automation as a bit of a Trojan horse. So we kind of think of the value stack. So once you get in to a customer's life and they have persistent engagement on the application, it's what can you then layer on to that application to build or stack value. And so it's things like things that are close in today, like marketplace for smart devices, it's enrollment in DR, it is rate optimization or time of use rates, it's those types of things. But then you think about a future services which are kind of on the horizon or next gen, like leveraging smart home devices to drive sale of warranties or insurance products or other ancillary home services like leak detection. And so this can become kind of a building block, almost kind of a digital marketing channel, if you will, for utilities over time once you have that user hooked and engaged on the platform.
Good, thank you. And you did actually provide a good segue for me when you talked about the different programs, because I do want to look specifically at demand response programs. So that one is one that's just really important to utilities as they try to maintain that grid stability. But of course, getting consumers to participate in the programs have really been a challenge, simply because consumers do not want to lose control of how they're using energy in their home. So at a certain point, we're very limited, but it's so important. So I know that a lot of you are in the field, and you've experimented with different things over the years. So any thoughts that you can share about what are some of the most effective strategies to sort of drive consumer willingness to participate in those?
Yeah, I think, Patrice, I would say, I'd say it comes back, particularly when we talk about DR, it comes back to our ability to personalize and target. And I don't mean just for the customer either. I mean, when it comes to DR, you got kind of three things at play. You have what's the load optionality of the customer, right? I mean, do they have a behavioral pattern that is conducive with switching load at a particular point? right? So that's kind of job one. Or that if you don't have that, you really don't have the ability to move things. I think there's the flexibility of the network and the grid to be able to work with that program. And then I think it's the susceptibility you might have with those particular assets on the grid. And so you've got the ability to, you have to have the ability to provide the intelligence to manage all three of those levers. And I think if you do that, you can make the demand that you make the DR program not only effective but profitable and have an experience with the customer that's useful. And I think there are many cases where you could surgically apply DR programs in a much more tailored way to the business.
Got it. Joel, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we're going to have some interesting outcomes this summer, I believe. If you think about where the load shift has occurred, we're not going into the office anymore. In fact, today was the day I went to the office to clear out my desk. We're not using our offices in the same way we did in the past. So in the past, where you could get residential customers to enroll because they weren't home during the middle of the day, they're now all home. And so we're into an interesting curtailment problem where we're going to see consumers who were more than willing to enroll in these programs for things like discounts and such. They're not going to be so willing because they're going to be living in that environment and working in that environment. So we're going to have a very interesting summer here going forward, which means we're going to be much more reliant on our commercial customers to curtail their loads. And so although we're, the primary way we've been engaging customers is through thermostat programs and the sort, I think it's going to be very challenging going forward to continue to do that when we're no longer in the office.
Got it. Okay. Any thoughts on that before I move on to our audience questions? I need some thoughts on DR and how we can drive that participation. All right. Well, let's jump on over to see what the audience is thinking. All right. And the first one is targeted at Landis & Gyr. So it's what partnerships is Landis & Gyr establishing in the field of disruptive technologies right now? So I don't know if you have any specific partnership, John, that you want to talk about, or any technologies that you want to acknowledge right now. But that's a question that was targeted towards you. So go ahead.
Sure. I can approach that a couple different ways. I mean, really, it's how we use the technology that we have in order to address disruptive technologies that are happening in the industry. And as we all know, that the industry is going through a major transformation, right? It's not an evolution, it's a transformation. And we're going to see a lot more customer impacts on the grid. And so for us, it's really looking at how do we partner with different technology experts that can provide some additional tools that help us and help the customer manage their energy better through control or disaggregation of load. So, I mentioned things like PayGo, and I mentioned things like Sense, but also we have a recent partnership with Google, and we're bringing, Google Analytics into what we're doing. So imagine being able to think about your smart home and your home assistant and managing lights and Nest thermostat and other things and integrating those efforts. I think, again, it's more about how do we address the disruption that's happening from technology versus just us pushing disruptive technologies out. We know that our customers are going to be experiencing a lot of that disruption, and they have already. And our goal is to provide the tools for them to be able to, not only from the utility side, but the consumer side, be able to manage those disruptions better, especially as you're looking at EVs and batteries and solar becoming more prominent on the consumer side of the business.
Right. Very important point. All right, let's take another question real quickly. Okay, the question is, any more insights on smart meter deployments? And are we now at the point where there is a second wave of smart meters being deployed?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think myself and sorry, John probably have strong views on this. from the smart meter angle, we've certainly hit the inflection point. Most utilities have now, moved in that direction. I think we are hitting the second wave, and I think what's going to be very pronounced in that next generation of smart meters is going to be moving the customer intelligence and the load intelligence inside the meter, so that the kind of disaggregation we talked about earlier, the ability to predict and detect and predict, anticipate failures in appliances and customer anomalies in customer behavior, we can not only do that in a static way to target programs, but we can apply those same insights very locally to the customer in real time. And like I said earlier, we've made last 3 years has been that's been a major focus for our R&D efforts. We've worked with just about every major meter manufacturer, and at the moment, we've gone through very robust testing with one of the leading meter manufacturers, and as I said earlier, we are now licensed and certified inside of that meter environment. That's going to be going live here with some utilities within the upcoming months.
All right, Joel, as the token utility on the panel, any thoughts on smart meter deployments?
So the interesting thing is we've been fully deployed with AMIs for 6 years now. And so 100% of our customers are in AMI. We're the largest customer utility in the state of Michigan. The other one is Consumers Energy, and they've been fully deployed for almost as long as well. So for me, it's the question is when are we going to have to replace all those meters based upon exactly what Bob just described, which is, although we've been building out our infrastructure to allow customers to get benefits from the meters we've deployed, the benefits of the meters that are coming online surpass what our meters are capable of. So when we start talking about second wave, it's really kind of now, even those that were on the first wave of deployments, where are they at with an obsolescence replacement program? And I can tell you, that's the next question we're going to have to start asking ourselves. With that being said, we're not probably going to be doing it in the next year or two, but the advancements that we've seen in the meters and the benefits you can get from the intelligence in the meters far surpasses the first wave.
And John, I think you may have some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, Bob is correct. I mean, we have a lot probably in common here because, we see it the same way at Landis+Gyr. We think that, the next, evolution of metering technology and having the ability to have apps at the grid edge is absolutely critical as we start to see that or continue to see the transformation of what's happening in the industry, and being able to have, through our Revelo meter, have those apps sit right at the grid edge and maybe make some decisions autonomously, right? Be able to do fault location or be able to understand what's happening on the grid, make some changes where data doesn't always have to go back to a head end and come back. You can make decisions much faster. And so grid edge technology is something that we see is evolving very quickly, and that's going to allow that second and third wave of what utilities can do, not only planning for today, but again, planning for 10 or 15 years from now. That's really where we want to keep our eye is where things are going, because these are long-term investments for utilities and for consumers. And we want to make sure that we're not only applying technology that's good for today, but that's going to evolve with the consumer and the customer for the next 10, 15 years and beyond.
Great, thanks. All right, so I just want to wrap it up with this last question. We were talking about all these solutions and bringing them to market and making sure that they're effective so they can meet the company's objective of saving energy, protecting the grid, or whatever the actual objective may be. So let me ask, how important is it then to leverage partnerships to bring these programs to market? Is it something that is better, deployed or build as a homegrown solution, or is it really important to enter into these solutions or offer these solutions with a partner behind you? And anyone who has an opinion on that can speak.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. Maybe quite an obvious answer, but these are really complex systems, really complex solutions that touches a lot, like all the major appliances in our homes, and we're talking about the grid and resilience. There's so many variables here. I think most of the sort of players in this industry are recognizing that. I think maybe the only exception is, I think, sort of a new entrant in this space, which is the sort of the car manufacturers that don't really have a history or a DNA of partnering with other businesses. And we're seeing lots of closed proprietary APIs and just a little bit of a concern, I would say. It's sort of only area where I'm a little bit concerned, but I don't think we see any real like apples of the energy space that are trying to own the whole end-to-end experience. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Anyone think he's wrong?
I could speak about it from our perspective as a data analytics company. You know, I think for utilities, you know, for vendors like us, if you look at how they have evolved, some of the vendors have actually evolved into being the applications themselves. So some of, you know, if I do a really good job at load disaggregation, then maybe I can invent an app to sell a utility, or I can do a better job in my DERMS application, and so I'm going to move in that direction. For us, we've kind of viewed ourselves as a little bit of the Intel inside. So for what I would call adjacent solutions. And so if we look at our partnering strategy, it's to find the adjacent solutions that can use what for us is a very repurposable asset. The load disaggregation, the load forecasting, the predictions about and the failure discovery, those kinds of things it can be repurposed across a host of different applications, whether it's a DERMS provider, an energy efficiency program provider, a marketplace, or even smart meter manufacturers trying to deliver services at the grid edge.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Bob. But that will have to be our last comment as we are out of time. I want to thank each panelist for what I thought was some very valuable insights. I want to thank our audience as well for their participation in this track. And also wanting to thank our sponsors. Again, these are Bidgely, Austin Energy, Osiaco, Flow, and American Water Homeowner Services. We also want to thank our supporters, the industry associations that help to make this event possible. Let us know if you need our help for any research, or salesperson Julie's contact information is there on your screen. Feel free to reach out to any of us. And up next, we will have our networking discussions. Those are supposed to be, those started at 1:15, so they're probably going on now. You can find a link for those in your chat in the live discussion section on Swapcard. So if you just click that link, it should take you right on over into the networking discussion on Zoom. Please join us for the next track for today, which is titled DERMS. Okay, it went off my screen. It's titled DERMS, Solar Storage, and Microgrids. And once again, thank you so much for joining us for this track.